Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm so glad to see all of you here with us this morning, setting up your week that's coming up. And I loved all the people looking at the my fun little on a scale of squash there. We had a lot of ZZZ zucchinis and some blissed out butternut. I always think those are kind of fun, the little fun little scales of which one are you this morning. So I am coming to you from Denver, Colorado. Technically, it's Aurora. We're in a little suburb here, and it's a little chilly this morning, right? We got definitely got some fall going on. I saw there's a frost advisory for this evening, so um, definitely getting into that fall. And yes, I can't actually see you. No one can see you. The only cameras are for myself, and the only person that you can hear is myself. You don't have any microphones, you don't have any cameras on, so it's all good. You can just have rolled out of bed and have the bed hair and sleepy morning look, and it's all good. With me this morning is my fabulous co-host Bailey. She is in Tennessee, and she'll pop on and say hello. Um, she popped in some information. She's doing a live event, an in-person event there in Tennessee. So if you are in the area on November 1st, highly recommend going and checking that out. We've been kind of experimenting with some of the in-person events. I know it's kind of tricky to find a good time and a good place and the locations, but we have been playing with those. So hopefully you are able to attend one at some point if there's one near you. I did want to mention, hopefully you have gotten the email with your 2025 annual check-in Silk and Saunders survey. Headquarters is asking people to please take a few moments and fill out your survey. It kind of helps us figure out what we want to do in terms of like tools and rituals, kind of knowing what's working. Um, there's some new product teasers to see if you're interested in any of those. So please, Bailey's dropping the link there. Catherine's saying it definitely took longer than 5 minutes. So yes, it probably did could have taken a little bit longer if you're being very studious and reading those. And she said that it was also good for her because it helped reflect on her Silk and Sonder experience. So thank you for doing that. And I think at the end, there's a little thank you surprise. I think there's probably a discount, I think is what it is, or something kind of a little thank you for taking the time. Yep, Catherine says there is a discount. So if you've been looking at getting someone else a subscription for a gift, or you've been wanting to maybe get some of the different Elevate Planner stickers, those kinds of things, you can take the survey and get a little code for a discount. So that's kind of fun. So we do have some community guidelines here. We want to make sure this is a safe and supportive environment. Oh, Tara, welcome. She says this is her first social ever, so welcome. Make sure, I do want to, I forgot to mention from the first slide, but make sure you set that little blue box in the chat to say everyone. It has an obnoxious tendency, especially if you're on an iPhone or an iPad, to flip back to host and panelist. And if it does that, the only people that see what you write are myself and Bailey. So just know that that is there. And then sometimes the chat can get to going kind of quick. We usually have upwards of 100, sometimes 200 people here. And so that chat can get rolling and that can be a little stressful. So you can always, kind of close out of that, participate as much or as little as you would like. I always tell people this is your time, this is your hour. So you do with it what you need, you take from it what you need. Sometimes people hang out in the chat pretty much the whole time. They take notes on sticky notes for how they want to set up their journal, and they do that later. Some people just completely ignore the chat, nose in journal, focusing on the setup. Some people do a little mix of both. Again, it's totally up to you. And we usually do 3 weekly setup socials. We do one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and then there's a Monday morning one. And then they've been really good about posting the recordings from these in our YouTube channel pretty quickly. So there's always those that you can go back to. And you can always watch a previous week, right? If you just need a little, that little dedicated time. Sometimes it's just kind of it puts that time in your calendar so that you can spend that time getting things set up. So we do ask that you are kind and courteous to both yourself and others. No promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy here. What happens in the Sonder Social stays in the Sonder Social. No hate speech or bullying. we limit those repetitive product and accessory questions. It's fine to have a few questions about what kind of pens folks use or stickers, but the best place to ask those questions really is in Sonder Club in our app. So people can post links, because that's the other thing. Sometimes the links don't show up correctly in the chat. So just know that that's potentially an issue. And any of those customer care inquiries, I'll go to hello@silkandsonder.com. So if you are having issues with so that you need to change your mailing address, you need to update your billing information, you want to switch from a monthly subscription to the yearly, which usually saves you some money, all those kinds of things, go to hello@silkandsonder.com, just because Bailey and I don't have access to your account, so we can't look anything up or fix anything. So just so you know that. And then ultimately, these socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. And I think you can probably see from the chat, we have such a fabulous, supportive, wonderful community here. But ultimately, you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So sometimes you're just not feeling it, right? You log on and you're like, I am just not feeling it. That's okay, right? You can come and go as you please. There's no one taking attendance. There's not going to be any, you're not going to get an unexcused absence marked in the grade book. It's all good. Again, this is you time, right? So you do what you need to do for you. The other thing I will recommend to folks is I'm going to show a lot of different examples of things that other Sonder fam have done in their weekly setup. So sometimes it's a good idea to take a screenshot, or if you've got your phone, to snap a picture so that you can go back to those later. Again, the recording, which Bailey did pop the link into the chat, is helpful to go back to so that you can remember what you saw. So that's always a helpful tool to be able to use to help spur your memory as you're working on doing those weekly setups. So this month's theme, and I cannot believe it's already the middle of October, and we're actually a few days past the middle point, but we have been working on this theme of resilience and this idea of being resilient, really kind of taking what life throws at us and doing what we can to then keep moving on, right? And I liked this quote by Maya Angelou that says, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And I think that's so important to really think about. We are changed by what happens to us, right? For good or for bad, right? Like what happens to us shapes who we are, but we do not have to be reduced by it. We can figure out how to take that, incorporate that in, and then move on. So I think that's been very fun to see people thinking about how resilience shows up for them, what that looks like for them in their daily lives, and how things have changed. And I like thinking about with that survey, as someone had said, it kind of helps them reflect on how has Silk and Sonder really kind of changed how you see yourself, how you see others, how you interact in the world. So I think that's always nice to kind of reflect back and think about that. So on our agenda this morning, we are going to work on our resilience mind map. This is the last week, week 4 of the resilience mind map. Next weekend, we will have a bonus spooky mind map to celebrate the Halloween holiday there at the end of the month. So just know if you have been working on that and you're like, wait, it's only the 18th, and how can it be the end of the mind map? There is just one more weekend left in October, and so that will be the bonus. We're going to do our rosebud thorn activity, which is over on page 44, and then we're going to work on those weekly setup pages. All right. And I always like to use these 2 little cartoons here to illustrate a couple of points. The first one with the little pile of kittens says that there's room for you here just as you are. So if there's things you want to celebrate, if things are going really well, you want to share kind of the fun stuff that's happening. We love to celebrate with our Sonder fam. And we know that life is not always a series of ups. Sometimes there's those downs, right? So sometimes maybe job isn't going well. Folks have lost jobs, illness. They've lost a family member, a furry family member, like things are not going well. And we're here for that too, right? We are here to support you. However you come to us, we are here for all of that. And then ultimately the way you feel matters, and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy. So no one can tell you, oh, you shouldn't be mad about that, or you should be happy for this. We all have our feelings, and that they just come up, and some of that's shaped by what's happened to us in the past, and it's okay, right? We're here for the feels, and we're here to share that with you, and feel free to share what you would like in the chat. So this is, again, if you haven't done this before, it's absolutely fine. You don't have to catch up. And you can see, you'll see what the previous week's prompts were, but you don't have to catch up. You can start right where you are. So this month really is that invitation to explore the quiet yet powerful strength that lives within you. So we often think of resilience as this ability to bounce back, but really it's so much more than that. It's that inner anchor that keeps us steady in a storm, the wisdom that we gain from past challenges, and the light that we carry that can also illuminate the path for others. So these weekly prompts have been guiding us to look at resilience not as a destination, but as a dynamic practice in our lives. So again, this is a blank page in your journal, blank space. It could also be a sticky note or another journal. It's not officially printed in your journal anywhere. It's only something that we do here in these socials. So we are on week 4, which the question is, how do I stay resilient while navigating change, challenge, or uncertainty in real time? And I think this is such a great prompt because let's be honest, change, the only thing that's constant is change, right? Things change. Things don't stay the same. Sometimes they stay the same for a really long time, and then that change can be very jarring. Sometimes they change super frequently, right? And so really kind of thinking about, how do we stay resilient while we navigate that? What do we do? How do we, what kinds of things do we bring to our lives to help us navigate that? And again, if you missed weeks 1, 2, and 3, you can snap a quick picture if you want to think about those. And I also like to mention that sometimes these prompts, you can't quite answer them in the time we give you because it's just a short time that we're together. So sometimes it's good to really kind of reflect on that all week long. So going a little bit deeper into this week 4, there's reflection on resilience isn't only built in hindsight, it's forged in motion. In the swirl of decisions, emotions, and unknowns, how do you access steadiness as you move forward? So that's something that you can kind of think about as you're thinking about how you would answer this prompt. And then you could also think about identifying one real-time practice. For example, maybe it's breathing, pausing, asking for help, or reframing that helps you centered in the moment. When did you last use it, and how can you lean into it more consistently? So lots of different things for you to kind of think about, but this whole idea is, how do you stay resilient when you know the world is changing? It's always changing. That's just how it works. And so I found the little flower growing in the crack of the pavement that said, change is inevitable, resilience is a choice. So how do you choose resilience? What kinds of things are you doing? And for a lot of us, it's that practice being present. It's that being here, maybe breathing, maybe it's the feeling, it's taking that time to notice. And for some of us, really, this time when we do this reflecting and writing, this kind of is how we become more resilient, right? How we really kind of think about how we're going to move on, how we're going to take what life is maybe throwing at us and kind of keep moving forward. So I'm going to play a little bit of music. I will let you feel free to share in the chat or just work on this. I will cycle through these slides so you can see that, and then we'll check back in and we'll keep moving on. Great. Thank you for sharing in the chat, folks really talking about the idea of breathing, taking time to really focus on breathing. Have you ever noticed sometimes when you're really stressed out and you realize, like, I think I've been very shallow breathing or maybe holding my breath even. So, really, kind of that I'm going to take 30 seconds just to take some deep breaths, even if you just take 3 deep breaths, really kind of seeing how that looks different. Sometimes it's moving, sometimes when something happens and that kind of change or stress or something is happening, that practice of I'm just going to go for a quick 5 minute walk, I'm going to stand up and do a little dance, right? Kind of asking yourself what you can do differently, folks kind of thinking about that, trusting the process, asking for support, asking others to really kind of think about how they can help you. I know sometimes asking for help for a lot of us is not our favorite thing to do, but you will be surprised sometimes when you find when you ask for that help how lovely that can be. And really that pause is so powerful. I definitely have to practice that myself with you get an email that needs something that's kind of demanding, or somebody kind of offers some criticism or something, and initial response is to be defensive and to jump with the first thing that you have to say. And so it's kind of like, okay, wait, I'm going to stop, I'm going to think about this for a second. Maybe I want to write down some feelings. Maybe I want to take a breath. Maybe I want to listen to a nice little song, um, and give myself that time and then respond. And sometimes even just saying, like, I'm going to sleep on it, right? You think about it, maybe you journal down your thoughts, you go to sleep, and then in the morning sometimes things are feeling much better. Or sometimes I find that I do better in the shower, right? I do good thinking in the shower because you can't really be doing multitasking and doing other things in there. So sometimes that's when your body kind of lets you just be present and really think about how to handle what's happening, what's being thrown at you, right? So thank you again for sharing those things. Maggie, we're so glad to see you in the chat there coming to join. And again, this is a good one to think about all week, right? Maybe this is a good Monday morning, or Tuesday morning, or every morning, kind of looking at this prompt and kind of thinking about it, and thinking about what kinds of things you do and how you're making resilience a choice for you. So I love that. So now we're going to do our rosebud thorn. Again, a little bit of reflecting there on page 44. We always like to end each week with a little bit of thinking what happened to us in this last week, the good, the bad, and maybe the not so great, something we look forward to. So I always like to start with the thorn, just because I like to start with the maybe the thing that's the challenge, the thing that's frustrating, the thing that didn't go well, the thing that's stressful. And for me, if you've been with us for a while, you've been with me for a while, you know I have some issues with my knees, I have arthritis in my knees, and sometimes they do really great and I don't notice at all. And then other times, especially if I eat a lot of processed sugar, they get angry, and then I have trouble walking and have to get the cane back out, and so that's not really fun. So that definitely has been a thorn. They're doing much better now, but I have to remember to be a little more diligent with my nutrition intake because it really affects me as I get older. That and caffeine, right? Like it never used to have an issue with that. Um, our bud is something, excuse me, that we're looking forward to. That's something that's an energizing opportunity, something that's fun, something that could bloom, something that gives you hope and motivation and inspiration. And every year, this will be our ninth year, I think, the group that we do like Monday night knitting together. There's 7 of us gals, and we go up into Winter Park. We rent a house. We do like the Airbnb. And then we stay, we go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and come back on Sunday. And we just sit around and we knit and we cook good food and we talk. And this year, I think we're going to listen to a spooky audiobook. So that it's definitely something I'm looking forward to. And then our rose is something that went well, something that we're grateful for, something positive, a little bit of a highlight. And so Thursday we did go see the new Keanu Reeves movie, Good Fortune. Big Keanu Reeves fan here. And it's really good. I will say, if you've seen the previews, it looks like it's a full-blown comedy. It's a little more serious. There's definitely funny parts. There's definitely funny things to see, especially Keanu Reeves as kind of this awkward angel whose job is to stop people from texting and driving so they don't get into accidents. And he wants to do a little bit more, but there's definitely a lot of serious lifey stuff in there, but it was really good. Highly recommend. So those are my rosebud and thorn. Feel free to share in the chat if you would like what yours are, to share what those are for you. We'll just keep well, I'll play a little bit of music so you can work on that, and then we'll check back in. Okay, so I see in the chat we had a little bit of confusion. We thought it was Maggie, but it was really Nicole, and now she's She's just here to mix things up for us there. It's we love our regular Sonder fam that are here, and sometimes I was like, oh, did something happen to Maggie? And so anyway, so no, it was Nicole, and Nicole is doing a great job recovering from some knee surgery that she had. And she's doing really well. So happy to see you here, Nicole. Thank you all for sharing in the chat those rose, buds, and thorns. I think it's always so important to really kind of think about giving ourselves a little bit of time to just reflect on the week. And these are also really great when you do the monthly setups. So you can go back and you can see kind of what happened during this month when you're reflecting on the whole month. So thank you all for spending just a little bit of time reflecting. So now we're going to dive in to the weekly planner. And what I'm going to do is we're going to do page 46 and 47. And so what I'll do is I'll go over each section on page 46 as one, and then give you a longer bit of time to work on that whole section, because I know for some people they kind of mix and match what they do for the sections. So sometimes that's helpful just to kind of see lots of examples from the whole page to see. And believe it or not, we're going to be in week 43 of the year there on page 46. So the first little box is this week I want to feel. And this is really thinking about how you want to show up for yourself and for others, that feeling that you want to have throughout the week, what that really looks like as you're going to go into this week. And so you can see there's lots of words in here. How do you want to feel today? Maybe you want to feel, maybe it's today or maybe it's this week. Some people do it, have a feeling every day they wake up and they're like, this is my feeling for the day. Grounded, open, inspired, included, optimistic, safe, lively, strong, valuable, curious, supported, creative, hopeful, maybe resilient is, excuse me, you want to kind of keep that going. Here's some examples of things that folks have written in this little box. Like I said, sometimes people have multiple, they have delight in there. I like that. And then they kind of made a little acrostic poem for that. Back in the groove, own your magic. This is a good place for stickers or for a quote. The progress, not perfection. Some people want to flourish. They want to feel flourishing this week. They plan to be resilient and rested. I love that idea. And then underneath that are the weekly major 3 goals. So a lot of times I like to tell people, think about the goals that you set for your week as ways that will help you achieve that feeling. So Alana wants to feel focused. So maybe there's some goals that she can set that will help her achieve that feeling. And then I have this these cute little ghosts that to kind of remind us of some things. So sometimes goals can be concrete. Sometimes goals are things like making time for rest or noticing little things or creating a life you love or leaving your comfort zone. So all these fun little things with the fun little ghosties there. Maybe you want to go back to those October intentions on page 9 and your monthly habit tracker on page 11 to help you set those goals. Remember those intentions we set way back at the beginning of the month? I have a tendency to forget to look back at that page. So this is a good opportunity to do that. Set your goals through that lens of resilience, creating those no goals, maybe things like no alcohol, no doom scrolling, no more than a certain number of minutes on social media, no impulse spending. For me, it's no processed sugars. Maybe you want to look at previous weeks or journals that might have some outstanding goals that you want to bring forward. Maybe you want to focus around like a personal challenge. So maybe there's a fitness challenge, like you want to do 10,000, you want to do your 10,000 steps a day or 7,000 steps a day. Maybe it's a cleaning or a decluttering. Maybe it's some self-care. Maybe it's a new recipe challenge, finding some new soups. Excuse me, some new soup recipes are fun with this time of the year. Here's some examples of things that folks have done. Again, really thinking about supporting how they want to feel. They wanted to feel more lovely. So the way they're going to feel more lovely is putting some extra effort into their appearance, buying some fresh flowers, being kind and extra pleasant to others. So that's always good. The one on the far left, they have a let go, leap into, and learn goals. Sometimes you want to focus on things like left brain, right brain, and no brain. Yep, Oprah's going to give everybody a goal. Maybe you have a school, a self, and a family. Maybe it's a house and a work and a self goal. Happy Goals Home and the rental unit had some goals for their house, and the rental unit they were working on different ways to do that. Then over in our to-dos, a lot of times we have a big list of to-dos. I know Jen O, one of our other facilitators, she always makes a monthly to-do list on one of her blank pages, just the whole list of all the things she wants to do for the month. And then every week she looks at those and kind of, you can use the Eisenhower matrix to kind of plug those in and see, is this something that's important and urgent? If so, I'm going to do it this week. Maybe it's important, but it's not urgent, so I'm going to push that off to another week. Maybe it's not important, but it is urgent. It does have to be done, so I'm going to delegate, thinking about how I'm going to delegate things. Or maybe it's not important and it's not urgent, so maybe I could delete this or drop it or delay it, right? So kind of thinking about that with that Eisenhower matrix. Here's some other examples. We do love a good bingo here in Silk and Sonder. Any of these little spaces can make for a fun bingo. Gamify things up. Maybe we want to focus on our morning routine or our evening routine. Maybe we have a mind, body, and heart to do. Maybe we have I like the one kind of in the bottom middle where they're saying, don't do this instead. So they give themselves I'm going to spend less mindless scrolling time, and I'm going to do something creative. I'm not going to procrastinate. I'm going to set a timer and see how much I can get done, right? So kind of a fun way to, I'm not going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do instead. And I enjoyed my little Kermit meme that I found that said, I made a huge to-do list for today. I just can't figure out who's going to do it, right? So I just can't figure out who to delegate that to. Or you can always use this place for stickers, any of those kinds of things as you're working on that. Here's another way to think about the to-do list. Maybe it's not to do, maybe it's to be. So lots of things. Maybe I want to be thoughtful. I want to be joyful. I want to be generous. I want to be open to change. Maybe that's something you've been working on. And with this mind map question for this week and this idea of being open to change, maybe it's being patient. Again, kind of, you can share in the chat. I know folks are kind of sharing in the chat what they're using some of these little spaces for. And then our habits and activities, or habities, as I called them one time when I was talking too fast. These are things that you want to do this week. So this is a little bit different from that big habit wheel, the monthly habit wheel, that are more of the things that you want to do every day this month. These are more things that are specific to the week. And I liked this little quote here that said, being resilient rarely feels resilient, right? It feels messy, it feels hard, it feels human, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. So sometimes we don't feel like we're being very resilient, but we are, by pushing forward, by changing things, by kind of moving forward. So here's some examples of things that folks have done with this. There's a nice one that focuses on just say no. So they're deleting some emails, they're decluttering, they're going some days without sugar, they're throwing away that expired food. I think I need to clean my refrigerator too. Where does that, like all those things, and they get pushed to the back, and then I forget they're back there. I feel like I need a refrigerator that's like not super wide, because otherwise it gets pushed to the back and I forget about them. Maybe it's no social media. You don't have to set every single one of these lines up for something, right? You don't have to have 5 things. Maybe you have one. They wanted to focus on hydrating. And then the one that's kind of in that bottom, see how they've circled. So they're saying they want to do that, the just one bite 5 times that week, and they're going to do it Monday through Friday. Or cook all 3 meals 4 times, and they circled the 4 days they want to do that. No dessert with dinner 2 times that week, and they circled Thursday and Saturday. So lots of different ways that you can think about using this little section. Here's one that we've been sharing this month, which is super fun. Idea of optimistic October. So today's the 18th. So the thing is, set hopeful but realistic goals for the days ahead. Oh, how opportune, right? To when you think about the goals, right? Hopeful but realistic goals. So really kind of think about some of those little things. And so this is kind of a fun piece. And then some people don't use it at all, right? They put stickers in that habit and activity section, or one person wrote, nope, they were going to go on vacation, and so they're not doing that section. Here's some ideas for some fall energy givers. I think these are some great things, like decorating for fall. We did put out our spooky skeletons on the porch that are the motion activated. They play the banjo. We got them at Costco several years ago. They're very silly. So maybe that's something you want to do. Bake some seasonal treats, set some new goals and routines for the season. I do think it's important for the seasons to kind of really look at your morning and evening routines. Because if you're like me, you look outside and you're like, is it midnight? Oh no, it's only 5:30 p.m. So thinking about different routines for what that looks like when it gets dark so early. Oh, I'm not going to go that far. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this page 46. I'm going to cycle through these pages so that you can see some of the different ideas. Please feel free to share in the chat how you're using these sections, what you're going to do this week. And the great thing about this being a weekly setup is try something out this week. If it doesn't work, then you can switch it to something different for next week, right? So it's just you could have kind of like a little trial period. So I'll be quiet, let you work on that, and then I'll come back and then we'll go over to our next page. Okay, so lots of different ideas for how folks are kind of using some of these spaces. Again, sometimes the space doesn't make sense for you this week, right? You don't necessarily need to have, um, those kinds of things. I do think some of these fun calendar things, maybe instead of three major goals, you just put down, follow the optimistic October calendar, and you can totally use that. So always fun to kind of think about how we use the space each week and what works for us. And always go back to some older journals if you want to take a look and see, like, what did I do with the space that I really liked? Definitely a fun way to approach the week, something a little different. So we're going to go over to page 47 now. And this is what our facilitator, Katie, always likes to call the B side, right? So sometimes we need the B side. Sometimes we like to listen to the B side. Sometimes we don't. So I think this is probably our more heavily repurposed section, especially this meal plan, where people kind of think of what different things can I do with this? Yes, some people obviously use it to plan their meals. Some folks use it to track their meals. Um, but again, but for a lot of people, they like to do some different things. So some people will use it as a symptom or a health tracker, maybe do a daily debrief, maybe look at their schoolwork or lesson reminders. Maybe you want to remind yourself if you signed up for some socials on these days. Maybe you want to do a word of the day. Yeah, Michelle uses it to write down the daily affirmation. Um, Maybe you want to do a glad reflection. So something you were grateful for, something you learned, achieved, and delighted. Bailey likes to put her work meetings in here. I like to use it as a packing list. So probably I will use it for that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for what I need to pack for my knitting retreat, which includes clothes, but also a lot of knitting and knitting things. I will be honest, there was one year where I got up there and realized I brought the suitcase with the knitting stuff, but I forgot my suitcase with my clothes and all my bathroom stuff. And so my sweet husband actually met, and one of the gals in the retreat, we drove halfway to meet at the halfway point to get my clothes. I was like, I mean, I guess I could just wear these clothes for 4 days. We weren't going anywhere, but I did need, like, my contacts and my toothpaste and toothbrush and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was, so planning can be very helpful to have things written down, and then you make sure you've got everything you need. Here's another fun little calendar with 31 days of introspection for October. So today's is the 18th, and it's what makes you feel appreciated. So maybe that's the kind of thing that you write. Yeah, Tanya, I don't knit quite fast enough to knit myself new clothes. I love the one in the middle. They use this for daily creativity prompts and some little doodles. So they did some really pretty little doodles and some colors. That's super pretty. Or maybe you want to do a fall scavenger hunt. So maybe each day you want to go and see what things you could find from this list as you're going for a walk. Then we have our mind body health plan, and I found a fun little Snoopy's fall self-care guide, so we can look at some of the different things. So maybe these are some things that we want to do. Look, notice Snoopy is knitting in one of them. So there's that. I also found someone had posted this in Sonder Club, the cozy tips for tired people. I thought this was awesome. This could be a good space to put in that mind body health plan. Maybe some things that you want to do, like let Sundays be candle and blanket days, no guilt attached. I think that's super fun. Again, kind of being the one on the bottom, they have love yourself, be quirky, be kind, be patient. The fun little alliteration one where they have meatless Monday, TV free Tuesday. Oh, Nicole, you found a new tea and it's a miracle. Tell us about your fabulous new tea. We want to always up for a good new beverage. Then we have that little shopping list where, again, you can use it for a shopping list. You can also use it to remind yourself no unnecessary shopping. Maybe, again, a bingo, some energy takers and energy givers. Again, I feel like this time of year, it's so important to really think about protecting our energy, to recharging ourselves, because we don't have as much sun. So we've got to find other ways to make sure that we are feeling energized, giving ourselves that energy. And then that little bottom box is the I am loving, right? What kinds of things are you loving this week? You could fill it out today. You could fill it out midweek, thinking about things. Maybe you want to do I am loving myself by. or I am loving everyday life, relationships and connections, self and growth, sensory joy, and family. They kind of break it down. So, super fun way to do that. So, again, I will play a little bit of music, keep working on those 2 pages. Nicole is going to tell us about her magic tea. Um, and then we'll check back in and we'll wrap things up. All right. Thank you all for sharing in the chat the different ways that you're using these sections here. I see a lot of folks, again, kind of using it to plan different things that they want to do. Let's see who wants. So Christy's looking for a good fiction book before bed. I will say I've been listening. That's one positive thing of my new job, having this long commute, is I have finished 6 audiobooks since August, and one of them was Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting, which was super cute. It's a great audiobook, but I imagine it probably would be a great book to read as well. So not scary, not intense, just a very fun story set in London on a commuter train with a fun cast of characters. So highly recommend that. And you know, another good place to ask for good book recommendations is in Sonder Club. So be sure you kind of pop in there and ask folks for some different recommendations. Those are always fun. So believe it or not, can you believe it's been an hour. We have been together. Hopefully you are feeling good about your week, getting things set up, kind of looking at your week ahead. Please, if you feel comfortable, share pictures of your setup. As you can see, all of these came from Real Life Social Sonder fam members like you. So we love to be able to share those here. And a reminder again about the survey. If you haven't had a chance to take that annual check-in survey, Bailey can pop the link in there for you, or it should be in your email probably if you look under like if you just kind of search under survey, you should be able to find it. It does take a little longer than 5 minutes. I think it says it's 5 minutes, but it is also kind of fun to do a little reflecting back on your journey with Silk and Sonder if you've been using that. And there's going to be some fun little teasers of potential upcoming products so you can kind of see what those look like. And then also, just as a reminder, on the 23rd, there is going to be the exclusive event with Meha, and her special guest they're going to be talking about exploring childhood wounds, how early experiences can shape us. And I think that's a great topic when we talk about resilience and as we think about what that looks like. So I think that is going to be this Thursday. So feel free to join. There is a small fee for that one because it is an exclusive. So just know that that is there. Also, if you have our Jenny, our life coach, our life map program, you do get the recordings of these, even if you don't pay to attend live. You'll get those in there. It takes a little bit of time for those to show up in that particular program. Also, if you sign up but you're not able to come to the event, they will send you a recording, and they'll send everybody who signs up for it the recording. So just know that that is there. So, and then there's the information about our personalized life coach. So hopefully you have a fabulous rest of your weekend. I have my 90-minute monthly massage coming up in a couple hours, so I'm looking forward to that. It is so great to spend some time with you all here. I think I will be back. Malika, I think, is going to lead the social tomorrow evening, and I'll be in the behind the scenes role in the chat. So feel free to join us. And I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. All right, everyone, take care.
London yesterday, found myself in the city near Piccadilly. Don't really know how I got here. I got some pictures on my phone, new names and numbers that I don't know. Address to places like Abbey Road. Day turns to night, night turns to whatever we want. We're young enough to say, oh, this has gotta be a good life. This has gotta be a good life. This could really be a good life, good life. I say, oh, this feeling that you can't fight. The city is on fire tonight. This could really be a good life, a good, good life. Paris to China to Colorado. Sometimes